Welcome back to Getting Open with me, Andrea Miller. Oh my gosh, you guys, I've got yet another amazing show. This one is on how finding true love can actually be inevitable. No joke. And if you're like, wait, I'm not looking for true love, I'm in a relationship, just hold your horses because the insights and takeaways we cover are absolutely for you too. We talk about dating blind spots, which again, those translate into longer term relationships. We cover how flirting can be your superpower. Again, whether you're in a relationship, not in a relationship, this is so about how true love is an inside job. So let's get into it. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to introduce my guest, Francesca Hogi. She helps people find true love inside and out. A former corporate lawyer turned matchmaker turned love coach, Francesca is an incredible TED speaker, host of Dear Franny podcast, and an internationally recognized expert on dating and relationships. And brilliantly, today, her first book, How to Find True Love, Unlock Your Romantic Flow, and Create Lasting Relationships, has released. Congratulations, Francesca.
Thank you,
Welcome to Getting Open.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that introduction. I feel like I should add to that bio, also former contributor to yourtango.com. But
Yeah, love it. Yeah, thanks for that. Keep contributing, sister.
Thank you.
Like we were saying even before the show began, I mean, obviously, love and dating and, these matters are perennial, but it just feels like between the loneliness epidemic and it being just like a trash can dating culture.
Yeah,
like
it
we
is,
need all the help we can get, Francesca. So thank you
Yes.
for being the expert in these important matters. I'd love just to tee up the premise of your book. You say, despite outer appearances to the contrary, you can connect to love so deeply to make true love inevitable. Why? Because true love is an inside job. I'm like, snap, sister, talk to me. This is good news.
This is good news.
So what do you mean by that? I mean, how can I make true love inevitable?
Yeah. So, sometimes when people see the title of the book, they're like, How to Find True Love. Well, like, what's it really about? I'm like, no, it's about that. And they're like, but what do you mean? And so, okay, first, I'd have to preface this all by saying that if I had not spent the last 12 years working with clients, as a matchmaker, as a love coach, I mean, this has been my job for 12 years now. And if I hadn't had the benefit of working with all of these amazing people from, different backgrounds, different life circumstances, different in all the ways that you can imagine. But having this commonality of wanting to have this really great, fulfilling relationship. And because I have had this sort of bird's eye view, because I've been on my own love journey, which is a whole other story, but it has been like, I tell people, I'm like, when it's your bill paying job to help people with love, you're really motivated to figure some things out. And so it became really clear to me that, there were some clients for whom it was just getting them into that relationship was so easy. Like it just flowed. It was just like they had the intention, there were some things they needed to get some clarity on, maybe some skills they needed to develop, some perspective they needed to shift, but they were able to do that. And once they did that, then the relationship just flowed really quickly. And then there are other clients who would have all of the same sort of, demographics, right? The same kind of biography, but it was just this struggle and this prolonged struggle, and they just did not make that same kind of progress. So I became really obsessed with like, what was that difference, right? And how can I get the people who are really struggling to that place of ease? And what is that place of ease? How do you define it? How do you break it down? How do you make it tangible? So,
you need that place of ease, are you saying, to actually achieve true love?
I'm saying to make it inevitable. right?
Okay. All right.
Okay,
I got you.
because love is greater and more powerful than any of us, right? So it is absolutely possible that you could be in the midst of the deepest struggle in your romantic journey and you still can meet an amazing partner and you can build a beautiful lasting relationship. So I never want anybody to feel like there's some, there's some place where they're perfect and you don't have any issues and you're totally healed. Like, you don't worry about that, right? But I do think that, one of the challenges that we have in our culture is that we put romantic love up on this pedestal and we put it as this like special kind of love, and it's the best kind of love, and it has all these different rules, and you've got to do this and do that and be lucky, and we like really set ourselves up to feel so disconnected from the very thing that we want, that then it's like,
The
okay, well,
Disneyfication of love has kind of effed us up a little bit, right? I mean, because we do have that. You talk about the happily ever after myth and how that basically screws up expectations and, maybe how people approach it. And for me, in fact, I love the late, great Sue Johnson, who talks about how relationships, how we grow each other. And I feel like, I mean, a romantic relationship can be a freaking tough taskmaster, but if you allow it to grow you, there's hardly any greater gift, right?
exactly. And Sue Johnson, so brilliant.
Love, oh my God, like one of my favorite people. So sad
yeah,
to
really.
not have her on the earth anymore.
I know. And we lost Helen Fisher. I'm like, oh, anyway.
Oh my God, I know. I really like Helen is one of my very besties. Like, she was my
Was
soul
she?
sister. So yeah, no,
Oh,
she and I were super close. So, yeah, but I mean,
she's
we
amazing.
carry on their work,
Yes,
Francesca, right?
yes, we do what we
We carry
can.
their
Yeah,
torches forward, these great ladies.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And you're so right, because this idea that we have that love is supposed to be this, again, this magical fantasy. Like, no one would say that when it comes to your family relationships, you don't have to ever make any effort for that relationship to work. With your friendships, like, it's set it and forget it. You never make any like, we understand that we have a role to play in all of our relationships, except for when it comes to romantic love. We get this message that now it's just about finding a perfect person, and when you find that perfect person,
Well,
it
it's
all
like
just
love
magically
from the
works out.
outside in, right? This idea of
Exactly.
finding the perfect person versus, not even being the perfect person, because that's bullshit. Like, who's perfect? Nobody.
Yeah,
And if
nobody.
anything,
Yeah.
this idea of being loved and loving somebody, in part because of their vulnerabilities and, shortcomings, like, there's a real beauty to that. But yeah, I feel like your approach is much more this idea of true love from the inside out versus from the outside in. And I think that Disneyfication is from the outside in. It's like, oh, in fact, I was doing this great interview recently with a guy named Michael Stone, who's one of the world's leading breathwork experts. And he just talked about how he shifted after decades of having a hard time finding true love and creating true, it actually should be like co-creating true love. I know you use the word co-create a lot. And he's like, it used to be like, what can I get? What can I get? I'm like, dude, that's so low vibe. Now he's like, it's all about what can I give, right? And if you go
Yeah.
too extreme of that, that's also low vibe, right? Like, you don't want to be like that forever. I'm just here to give, and like,
Yeah. Yes.
be
Receiving
lame.
is half the equation here. Yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I just, so this idea of like co-creating true love, but the fact that you say it's inevitable. So how do we get there for people? And I'd love for you, where it's appropriate. Um, yes, there are going to be people who are single and dating and looking, and then others who are maybe maybe further along in their dating journey, and then others who are married who are like, okay, or in a long-term relationship, like, what can I get from this? So I'm going to give a little spoiler. We're going to talk a lot about flirting. So it's like,
Yes.
oh, like, setting those
Yeah.
intentions, no matter what stage you are in your romantic journey, you've got insight. So backing up, so how, you've got kind of a 4-step process here. Can you walk us through that to give us that foundation?
Yes, absolutely. So the book is divided into 4 parts. So the first part is mindset. So this is just literally how you think about love. Like, how do you think it works? What do you think it's supposed to look like? How do you think it happens? Because as we've said, we have a lot of conditioning around what romantic love is supposed to be. And a lot of it is so unhelpful because it's not true, right? It's not true that there is one perfect person, and then when you meet them, everything
Well,
magically
it
works
F's up
out.
your expectations,
It totally
right? I mean, I
does.
just feel
Yeah.
like it is just a such a what's the word? Just bad I'm not thinking of the right word, but like, yeah, I just feel like to have those expectations reset really is so key because I mean, in a lot of ways, it feels like it's almost like never been harder given the tough climate in which people are dating and finding each other. But anyway, I interrupted. Go
Yeah.
ahead, please.
No, but I think, but what you're saying, it's really important because I think this is one of the reasons why people are so frustrated. It's like because what we've been told and the way that we've been told that love is supposed to work, enough people now are like, okay, but that's not actually true. Like that's not, that's not working out for me. So now what do I do? And so there's this frustration. So and for some of the people that I work with and, who come across my work, literally just reframing and getting a new perspective on love and kind of embracing like the true power of love. It's not just this thing that you're chasing and it's not just an emotion. It's an energy. It's a verb. It's a state of being that for some people is really enough for them to just get into that flow state where now everything starts working really easily. So that's why the book starts with mindset because, this is foundational, right?
Sister, the
Yeah,
power of our minds. The older I get, actually, for me, it's the heart mind connection, right? It's like, oh, we all have so much more power often than we give ourselves credit for. And yeah,
exactly.
mindset,
Yes.
and like you say, tapping into that energy, positive energy, and not to be, toxic about it, but reframing is so powerful. So that's awesome. Okay, so you start with how you think about love, and then what's next?
So next comes heart set. So you're talking mind heart connection.
Hey, we got it. We
Absolutely.
got the
Right.
combo.
Right. So heart set is really, this gets into what you believe about love, how you feel about love. Right. So how you feel about yourself. Like, you were talking about this a little bit and it's so true. Like we are on this love journey, right? Like we're meant to grow in love. It's not meant to be set it and forget it. Like forget about that. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if it was set it and forget it? No, why would that be nice? Like
Yeah,
we're
like, get real
actually
boring real fast.
that would be really boring, right? Like we're
Mhm.
here to actually grow and to evolve and to learn how to become more loving and to learn how to receive more love. And as you said, like that mind heart connection is so strong. And so, one of the things that's so obvious when, you work with single people who are looking for that great relationship is how good we are at blocking our blessings just through the power of what we believe.
Like limited beliefs kinda thing, right?
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
So just the way limited beliefs will hold you back and expanded beliefs will help you soar forward. Like it's literally like we want to be right about what we believe more than we want to be happy, right? And so the heart set section of the
Ooh,
book
that's
is
so
about
good. But that's also good. I mean, but that's like even taking that a step further. I think about, relationships I've been in. It's like, you wanna be right or you wanna be happy. Like, get your ego out of it, people.
Yes, yes,
Right?
exactly, exactly, yes. And so I do talk about the role of the ego and the role of beliefs. And so that part of the book is really, it's really geared for, I mean, it's for everybody to get that foundational knowledge and like, okay, what do I actually value and all of that. But it's also for people who are really like stuck in a pattern or in a rut where they're just like, I don't know how to break through. This feels like, it feels like this is inevitable. It feels like the struggle is inevitable. Like this disconnection is inevitable. It's like, no, we can actually change that.
Well, does that get to, I mean, it feels like it gets real core real fast. And, I've talked really openly on this show and elsewhere about my own limiting beliefs, and it's like not feeling enough and, feeling like, I have to really prove myself, right? So is that kind of part of it that, and, I think I've always felt worthy of love, but I know that's a limiting belief that a lot of people struggle with. So it's like if it takes a lot of work to get to these really core limiting beliefs. I mean, it kicks your ass to get there, but once you do, it's like, "Oh, yay. Now
Yes,
I'm
it is.
free, right?
Yeah.
Now I can
It's
go
it's
I can do
transformative.
something with that."
Yeah, it's transformative. And that's why, and so, every chapter of the book also has what I call heart work at the end of the book. So it's like you read about it, but then you do this work yourself. You answer these questions yourself so you can come to your own clarity. But like you said, that self-worth, and I talk a lot about self-worth in the book. And you know, I have the self-worth formula. I mean, I'm sorry, the self-love formula. I have the self-love formula in the book, and self-worth is an element of that because it's sneaky, because it isn't that we always are saying consciously, I don't think I'm worthy of love. Some people might say those words, but for other people, it might just be, you may not even be consciously thinking that, but when
That's the problem,
you're right,
right? It's like
exactly.
you don't your psyche is so good. So many of our psyches are so good at protecting us. So it's like, I mean, like even in this case, Michael Stone, who I referenced, he said he was failing at dating for 30 years, and he finally was like, oh, I guess the common denominator is me. Right. And, and he did all this transformative work, and now he's got a brilliant relationship. But it goes back to doing your own work, right? So that whatever those limiting belief or set of limiting beliefs, you can make what's unconscious conscious and then reprogram it. Otherwise, it's that, his experience is that cautionary tale. I mean, keeps dating, but it's like, oh, frick, it never works. Like, okay, what's wrong with all these people? And then he's like, oh, man. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, but that's the good
Yeah,
news, right? Because then
that's
it's like, oh,
great
if it's me, then I
news.
could do something about it.
It's great news. And one of the things that I was really aiming for with this book is because when people do say, do the work, feel more worthy, love yourself more, reframe your beliefs, it's kind of like, okay, well, how do I do that? Do I have to go to therapy for 20 years? And, the book is really designed to be, I'm not knocking therapy and, I'm
No,
not,
but 20 years,
I'm not
I mean, it's like, I
discouraging.
want a
I'm not
boyfriend. I don't want to
discouraging.
do 20 years of therapy before I have to get my boyfriend.
Right. And you don't have to, and it's not necessary. Right.
Yeah,
And so
no,
that's
totally.
why this book is really, it's really designed for you to just get so much clarity so quickly. So it's like, oh, okay, actually, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to understand where every single belief or wound comes from in order to transcend it and still have the love that I want. Right. Basically, nothing disqualifies you from having the love that you want is my premise, right? But there's all these other things that get in the way. So how do we remove those things so you can just flow and it can actually just happen inevitably in your life, right? So that's part 2 of the book, and then part 3 is about soul set, and this is a very overlooked factor in the love journey and certainly in the dating journey, which is actually having a level of surrender, of using the power of intention, of understanding that love is actually truly abundant, and really connecting to a higher love, and really understanding what your soul is calling you to experience. Because people are so, it's like in their hearts and their emotions and in their heads and their thoughts, but they're not realizing like, oh, wait, there's actually something bigger going on here. And I don't have to figure this all out myself, right? And being more present and being more grateful and using the power of intention, those things are actually like, without doing that, you can't make it inevitable. You could make it maybe more likely, but you can't make it inevitable, right? So,
Well, and that, I mean, all of, that combination of, like you say, gratitude and intentions, to me, I mean, trust, surrender, like those, 5, 6 strands, that's high vibe, baby. You know what
yes,
I mean? So
exactly. Yeah,
then you're
yeah.
attracting what ultimately is going to feel good, right? Versus it's like, what did I just read the other day? I'll try to find it real quick while we were talking. Somebody wrote like the universe at Matt Cook, actually, he's been on the show too, is just a mirror. And it's like, if you're, feeling negative and so forth, that's what's going to come back to you. Right. And it just feels like, so to your point, cultivating that soul set, um, it feels like that is enabling you to attract what you want. And that love, love being abundant versus love being scarce. Like even that is a massive reframing.
It's a massive reframing, but a lot of people have some difficulty kind of getting there. They're like, but there's still only but this many people who I could possibly date, and they get very stuck in what they can imagine. And and when you connect to the soul set, then you start to understand, because and I say this in the book, like at some point you just have to decide what you believe about the universe, like what you believe about life, God, existence, spirit. Like, do you believe that you have this desire in your heart to experience this love and this partnership because it's not available to you, because it's just you're just meant to be tortured by that? Or are you actually meant to understand how to make that manifest in your life, right? And so that's what that section of the book is about, and gets into really this concept of romantic energy, because we all have romantic energy, just as we have energy around all different parts of
Coming
our
back to
lives.
flirting very soon.
Now we're getting to flirting, because then we get to part 4 of the
Yeah,
book.
yeah, 'cause
And
that
that's,
that is such a vibe thing.
it's such a vibe thing. And if you're just going through the motions and you're not actually connecting to, you're not being present, and you're not actually like paying attention to your energy, to other people's energy, you're just going to be really flying without a net and just making all sorts of random decisions based on what your mind is telling you you should do, or what your patterns are like leading you to do, because that's what you've always done, versus what you're actually being guided to. Right. And so, so the skill set part of the book, part 4 of the book, is about these foundational dating, connecting skills that are, and dating skills are relationship skills, right? So
Yeah.
like dating skills are love skills.
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because it's a
Yeah.
continuum.
It's a
Right?
continuum.
Because if
Yeah.
you want and back to Helen Fisher, I mean, she would talk a lot about keeping your relationship, if you're with somebody dating or married for years, it's like one of her whole things was do new things, right? Like try new things. And that release of oxytocin occurs because you're doing new things and you're doing new things together. The other thing that she would always emphasize, and I think I listened to your great podcast with Simon Sinek, and I think you guys touched on this. You did actually. Haha, it's coming back to me. Paying attention, that's good. Her whole thing was scan for the positive and just really really kind of de-emphasize the negative, right? And I feel like in your conversation with Simon, I feel like it was that similar, like you're looking for the good, you're looking for what's right, which is, that too is a shift in mindset, because so often, especially if people have been just beaten down by getting ghosted and this toxic dating culture, it's like they're just looking for a reason to say no and what's wrong. You know what I mean? So that feels like a really big, but back to this being a relationship skill, right? Like what you're showing up with and cultivating in your dating life. I mean, that translates into a longer term relationship,
Yes. If you're doing it with intention and you're doing it, in a productive way, it absolutely is. Right. And so that's what the 4th part of the book is about. It's about how can you do that? What does flirting actually mean? Right. And there's many reasons to flirt. There's many different settings for flirting. There's many different styles of flirting, but ultimately at its core, it's taking an action to make another person feel seen, special, and acknowledged. Right. And so, yeah, if you want that relationship, in the fairy tale version of things, it's just about getting to the relationship, getting to the ring, getting to the altar, getting to I do, and then the story ends. But in real life, if you want to, as Helen Fisher, taught us, if you want to maintain that connection, that excitement, that passion, like that is going to be an ongoing co-creation. So if you think like, oh, I don't need to flirt with my partner, and I don't need to think about, what are the different ways that I could flirt with them and connect with them and, in different settings and give them that, like, then you're really risking the possibility that things are not going to stay feeling as connected. Right.
Yeah, no, it's back to your point about intentional. I love you say flirting is a superpower. It's one of my superpowers. I flirt with everybody. I mean, and not even like in a gross, weird way, but like,
No, it's amazing.
and you talk about like, it's the human connection. Like I delight, whether it's a stranger or in any number of relationships, it's like that connection for me, it is like, it's just so empowering. Like, I'll never see this person again, but we just had like a funny moment.
Just had a moment.
Like, I just
and
love
it's
it.
so like I remember this. This happened like years ago, but I was at a deli in New York, and I was looking at the sandwich menu, and they had all these great sandwiches. And the guy behind me, and there was someone behind me in line, and I was like, "You can go ahead of me. I can't decide." He's like, "I can't decide either." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to decide between this one and that one." He's like, "Those are the ones I'm trying to decide between." And then when we decided to get one of each and to share it.
Oh, no way. That's a great New York story.
And it was just like, it was just great. And so we just gave each other, the half, and it was like, okay, bye. I would not recognize him.
I love it.
If he, but it was just one of those moments where it's just like, look, there's human beings all around you, and there's a potential to connect with them, and if you move into the world with that intention, And this really gets into what I call the meet cute mindset. And I'm really on this mission to get people to be more comfortable dating in person and meeting people in person, and breaking this dependency that we have on dating apps, because that dating app dependency is one of the big reasons why dating culture feels so hard and people are so burnt out on it right now. Because we're humans, like we're meant to connect with each other in person, right? And so the idea that so many people now have given away their romantic agency to an app, and it's an app
Well,
and
I
an
feel like people are
experience that
getting
makes them feel
commoditized,
terrible.
right?
Yes.
Swipe,
Yeah.
swipe, swipe,
Yes,
swipe. It's
exactly.
like
Like items in a catalog.
100%. Yeah. So how do people, what are you recommending in terms of moving away? And by the way, I mean, speaking of Helen, Helen Fisher would always say, the apps are not dating apps. They are meeting apps, right? She
Yes.
was always like
Yes. She
very
would. Yes.
clear
I've heard her say that. Yes. Yeah.
and right on, right? Because it's like, if you don't connect with somebody, well, then that inevitability is the exact opposite of what you want. But what do you recommend, especially, I mean, more people are working from home. What do people do who are, or, they're out of college, or, there's a limited, in their mind, limited opportunity to meet people, and they're so tired of the dating app. So what do they do?
So I really do invite people to adopt what I call the meet cute mindset. And that is this belief that every time you leave the house, you have the potential to meet someone special. So do you also maybe also want to look at things like, okay, how can I have more opportunities to be out? How can I have more opportunities to be social? Is there a day of the week where I could go work at a coffee shop instead of working in my kitchen? Is there an opportunity to start to expand my social circle? And instead of only hanging out with the same 5 people that I always hang out with, maybe now I'm going to say yes to some invitations from people who are a little bit further out, because the more I expand my social circle, the more I'm really courting serendipity and meeting new people, right? But also, I think a big part for a lot of people is just they have this narrow idea of how and when it's possible for them to meet someone, right? So they might think, okay, if I'm going to a party or I'm going to a bar, then they might have that mindset of like, okay, maybe I'll meet someone. But what about when you go to the airport and when you go to the supermarket and when you go to walk your
Wherever
dog?
there are people.
Wherever there are people. So even just considering that and starting to just practice, and this gets into flirting a little bit, because there's lots of levels of flirting, right? As I go through in the
Well,
book
it's
in
being
different
open,
styles.
right? I
It's
mean, I
just being
feel like it's
open.
back to your point about it's having that intention. And, I mean, I would think it's like, rather than schlepping around in your, whatever, like workout gear, like use yourself a little more, right? Like I feel like from being ready, feeling great about yourself when you go out of the house and you're around people. And then, like you say, having that openness. In fact, I love what you say about eye contact, because that is, I think, something that can really freak people out. So why is eye contact such an important part of making a connection and being a flirting superpower?
Yeah, I mean, like we've evolved for eye contact to be an intimate, vulnerable experience, right? And so, looking someone in the eye, it means something. I see you. I respect you. I'm not trying to hide something from you. I'm allowing you to see me. And so and a lot of people are very uncomfortable with eye contact, and so that's one of the things that I encourage you to like start practicing. And don't just wait until you see somebody who you're attracted to. Just really start to normalize. I am a person who moves through the world with this openness to connection. And when you're ordering your coffee, like you could actually look that person in the eye when you're placing that order, right?
Well, I'm smiling, right? I
And
mean, I would
smiling.
contend, not to
Yeah.
nerd out, but when talking about the loneliness epidemic, when I think about all the neurochemicals, like oxytocin is released when you make eye contact, right? And other neurotransmitters are released when you smile. It feels good, right? And that, like, back to that idea of co-creation, we are inherent. I mean, like Brene Brown says, we are inherently physiologically
Yes.
wired for
Wired
connection.
for this.
And if we're
Exactly.
just sitting there, and you say, like, if you're flirting and you're looking at your phone, you are not flirting.
You're
You know what I mean? And so when I
Yes,
just
yeah.
think about, like, lift your head up, tune in, and I am so guilty. I listen to music all the time. I am so guilty of being in public listening to music, and I'm like, Andrea, you got to turn it off, because you're not going to be able to, share a sandwich with a stranger. you're just listening to your music, right? And
Yeah.
that I see more and more people consumed by always listening. So it's not even just you're looking at your phone, you're in your own effing world, right? And that's not going to be conducive to, finding true love. So you got to take your earbuds out
Take the
and you got
earbuds
to,
out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Or even if you have them in, just still pay attention to your surroundings, right?
Turn it
Like
down a little.
you
So
can
my
turn it
kids are
down
like,
a little.
Mom,
Like,
turn it down.
like if you're one, what you're, maybe you're one, like I'm in New York. Like if you're maybe when you're on the subway, you like to listen to your music, but you're still on the subway. You can still look around, right? There's still other humans, and be willing to take that earbud out and say, oh, hey, or ask a question, or say like, oh, I really like your shoes, or like, that's a great hat, or just giving those moments of human connection.
Well, you
and
say, I loved your advice. You're like, say something.
say something. Literally
Like,
just say
don't even
something.
worry about it. Like, just,
Yeah.
like take that first move. And it's funny because in life, so often it's the simple and obvious things that freaking work.
Yeah.
Right.
They
And
really
it's like,
work.
we're always waiting. And I think of this in all phases of relationships. We're so often waiting for the other person to go first, to say they're sorry, to say they were wrong, to make a move. And I love you're like, be bold. Like, you got agency, right?
You have agency, and give a compliment. Giving a compliment, is like, it's such a powerful way to connect with somebody, and a sincere and not a creepy one, not like, oh, you're hot. You don't need to, like, don't say that. Right. But like, say something like, oh my gosh, like, I love your dress, or yeah, I love those shoes, or, you just have a really great smile, or, I love the way you placed your order for your coffee. It doesn't say something, right?
You're noticing. You're noticing.
You're noticing, right? And
Excellent.
it's a bid for connection. And, and this gets back to flirting too, what you were saying. It's like, we do have all of these chemicals that get released when we're in connection with other people. And I think a very, very overlooked thing that so many daters have, oh my gosh, this is major, is they think that they're supposed to know instantly when they meet someone whether or not they're attracted to that person and that person is a romantic possibility for them. And
yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Does chemistry have to be a precursor, or does it have to be instant, or how frequently do you see that that kind of physical attraction, that kind of magnetism may not be present out of the gate, but that it is something that is created in time as people get to know each other?
Yeah. So the thing about chemistry is that we are always co-creating chemistry. It's just that sometimes we're doing it unconsciously. And that's why we're like, oh, I'm just instantly attracted to this person. And sometimes we're doing it more consciously, where it's like, okay, there's something interesting about them. I'm going to lean in and see if I can spark something. Because first of all, that instant chemistry is a very unricky indicator of long-term compatibility.
I was going to ask you, okay, so lust versus love, right? Like that can be tricky, right? Like if you're feeling like super attracted to somebody, it's like,
yeah. And you need to know yourself, because for some people, they know that their attractions, when they're instantly attracted to someone, they're also instantly attracted to a relationship dynamic and a pattern that they no longer want. Right. And so if like every time I meet somebody and I'm instantly attracted to, it turns out that person, has an addiction issue, or they're emotionally withholding, or they're then you have to start to not take that instant chemistry so seriously. You need to start slowing it down and not say, oh, I'm attracted, that means go. It means, okay, I'm attracted. That might be a yellow light. It might be a red light, right? But then the more you really know yourself and you know how sort of aligned what you want is with what you are generally drawn to, then you can trust that instant chemistry a lot more, because that like, yeah, the people that I'm drawn to are people who are, they have integrity. They are, you know what I mean? So
let me ask you, in your experience. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's something that comes from like knowing yourself. But I think that what people really overlook is just the opportunity, or let's say things like, well, I don't want to flirt with someone because what if they're not interested in me, and then I'll be embarrassed. And it's like, first of all, they might be interested in you after 5 minutes of talking to you. Okay. So like, leave that possibility
it's
open.
the old Wayne Gretzky, all the shots you don't take. I'm going to butcher this reference, but it's like the shots you don't take, never, that puck never makes it in.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Thank you.
Yes.
You know what I was trying to say.
You're right.
Well, totally. I also love how you literally say when it comes to making someone's day. If you succeed in making someone feel seen, special, and acknowledged, the worst that can happen is you make their day brighter. The less attached you are to the outcome, the more you'll give this gift to others. I mean, that to me is like one of like the pearls of wisdom we can take to every relationship. It's like just, like the transaction is complete after, you notice, you take your shot, and that's it. And it's like, all right, I took my shot. That's it. Let me like let go of the outcome. It's like the most liberating thing.
Yeah. And this is what I mean about getting to that place of inevitability is just understanding like, I don't have to be super attached to every outcome because I know that I'm going to meet someone amazing. And if it's not this person, that just means it's somebody else. So I can get excited about that. I can allow that to unfold. I mean, one of the big things that I talk about in the soul set part of the book is intuition, right? And listening to your intuition and following your intuition and really paying attention to that because that's what is guiding you. So sometimes, you meet someone and I mean, like I had a long-term relationship with someone, for instance, that I met walking down the street in LA.
I was going to ask you about this. Thanks for raising it.
And it was literally like, like on the street corner. And I was just like, oh, there's just something. It wasn't like I was like instantly like, oh my God, I want to rip his clothes off. I just felt like, oh, there's just something about this person that just seemed like warm and interesting. And there was this like a little sparkle in his eye. And like, there was just something there that made me say, I'm going to be open to this person. And it was literally just a choice that I made in that moment. Like, I'm going to be open to this person. And we wound up walking together for a couple of blocks. And then we went our separate ways. But I had enough information about him. And this is where it gets to the bold move, where I went home and I Googled him because I had enough information to know, to easily find him. And I slid into his DMs and I said, it was nice meeting you. That was what I said. I didn't say hi. I didn't say bye. I just said, it was nice meeting you. I had no idea he could have been.
That's high vibe. That's high vibe. That's not too much or too little. You're right there, right in the sweet spot.
Because I'm like, I have no idea if he's available. I have no idea if he's interested.
Yeah.
He might be like, wow, this is a crazy person because she just like stalked me and found me. Who knew? I'm like, there were so many potential outcomes, right? And I just didn't care because I was like, all I know is that my intuition was telling me. I feel like
it's back to trust, right? You're trusting your intuition.
Right? Mm-hmm. And my intuition was just saying, like, I feel like you're supposed to keep talking to this person. And so he responded to my message. He asked me out to dinner. And, we were together for like 6.5 years after that, So I share that to say that
you can actually meet some. No, first of all, like one of my colleagues says, nobody walks in LA, like the song says. The fact that you were walking, two people were walking in LA, and you literally met on the street, like that entirely proves your point.
Yes,
of that if you have that intention, you're open, you make the bold move, you're vulnerable. It's like, I mean, 6.5 years.
It's going to happen. It's like it's going to happen. It's like if you were really committed to like, completing a 10K and you just like, and you're like, I haven't run a step in my life, but I'm committed to this. I'm going to do like, eventually you're going to get there. Right. And that's how I feel like if you're committed to having more love and connection and having true love in your life, like as long as you are taking forward motion, that's in your department, things that are within your control, like not the universe's control, things that are in your control, like your openness, your ability to be vulnerable, your ability to shift perspective, your ability to communicate, your ability to flirt. Like if you're paying attention to what's in your lane and in your control, you're going to get there. And so, that's what I really, really preach. And exactly like you said, it's like, don't worry about the fact that quote, nobody meets that way, or that there's quote, no single people. Like, you're not trying to solve this for every single person. Do you believe that you can have the love that you want? And if so, then just get excited about that. Because I can tell you when I met him on that street corner, I was at a phase of my life where I was like, I don't know who he is. I don't know where he is, but I do know that I'm going to meet someone amazing. So I was fully in that mode of just like, all right, I'm open.
Called him
I'm excited.
To you, sister.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen. And so then it happened. I was like, oh, yeah, I knew it was going to happen,
So switching gears a little bit, you can't talk about modern dating without talking about sex. What are the rules? I mean, are there rules now in terms, that most people feel like are relatively standard? Are people having sex on the first date? I mean, there's and then talking about hookup culture and so forth. So how do people navigate that these days?
So it's hard because it is not a one size fits all question, because people have different goals, right? And that's one of the things that I encourage people to do when we go through that in the book. Like, what do you actually want? What do you want now? Because even what's your, what are your 3-month relationship goals, right? Because if you're like, okay, if I go for 3 months in time, what do I want my love life to look like? And if you say, well, in 3 months, I want to be in a committed relationship with someone, where we really value each other, then maybe you're not going to have sex really quickly with somebody you just met, because you're very motivated to actually invest time into getting to know them, and yourself, and you know that if I start having sex with them, I'm going to get bonded to them and my judgment's going to be totally skewed. Right. Versus the person who's like, actually, I'm in a phase in my life where maybe I've been in a relationship for a really long time, and we had no sex, and now I'm in a phase where I want to explore that part of myself, and I want to have intimacy, and I want to have adventure, and I want to have fun, and so you have a different goal, right? You're in a different place. So it's not a one size fits all thing. I think that one of the chapters in the book is about your dating archetype, right? And so I have these 4 different archetypes that kind of represent these different phases of the love journey. And depending on where you are on that love journey, you kind of have a different assignment or a different goal at the moment. So it's just gonna vary depending on where you are. But that's one of the things that I really want people to take from this book, is understanding, like, this is not about me trying to fit in some box of like a generic rule, because that rule does not make sense for everyone, and what actually makes sense for me.
And how does that, I mean, do you feel like it differs, dating, say, in your 20s or 30s versus 40s, 50s, or 60s? I mean, especially when it comes to sex.
Absolutely.
Like, I feel like
Absolutely. Yeah.
there's a different perception, the shame and, all that stuff that feels like, when I was younger, it was like, oh my God, like, you know, there was a lot of that. And it feels like that's changed, that a lot of women do feel more liberated. In fact, if anything, I mean, I feel like Helen Fisher would talk about how people are actually having sex earlier to figure out, is this a match, right? Rather than waiting. And it's like, okay, everything else lines up, but our physical chemistry is actually not there. And now that's a problem, right?
Yeah. And
So,
yeah. And I think, and a lot of this kind of goes back to like, okay, what is that relationship with myself? How much can I trust my discernment? How much am I, because even when I talk about being open and co-creating chemistry, I'm not saying to date somebody for 6 months that you're not attracted to, right? and you're like, okay, I'm not, but I'm gonna try because I'm being open and I want this relationship, and there's these other great things. And then you sleep with each other finally, and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Don't do that, right? But also, I think that it depends. I mean, I work with a lot of people who are in their 40s and 50s, and a lot of them are in a place where they're like, I've had tons of casual sex, and I'm now want to take it slower. And there's some of them that have been like, I was in a relationship from the time I was 18 to the time that I was 38. Like, I want to have sex now, right? And they're actually more uninhibited about it, because they're like, I know what I want, and I'm not going to pretend that this isn't an important thing to me like I used to. So it's really depends. And I think that in general, if we were just totally generalizing, which I don't really like to do, but if we were totally generalizing, I would say, yes, in your 20s, you tend to be more exploratory. You tend to be a little bit more open to exploration, to having more casual encounters. But I don't know. I think we're at this moment now where I think that when you and I were in our 20s, this would have been a very different conversation. But now I think we're in this moment where so many people are frustrated with dating, that even people who maybe when we were 22, we had a bit more carefree attitude about sex, that they don't have that, because they've seen how a carefree attitude towards sex doesn't necessarily lead to what they want for themselves.
well, yeah. I mean, and then it's like, oh my God, STD superbugs.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
let's see, is that on my profile? Do I have an STD? No. Green light. I me, like that becomes, I mean, it really becomes a practical consideration. And we, back to your tango, one of my favorite essays was written by one of my dear colleagues. She wrote so vulnerably about having, and I say it like no joke. It was one of our is still one of our most popular essays. It's like one of the last taboos. Like there have been so many taboos in love and relationships that have been knocked down, and what's acceptable and so forth. And she wrote really bravely about the shame that she experienced in having an STD and how that messed up her dating life, and how there was a man or two, I can't recall the details. I read it a long time ago, but judged her, and just like that profound sense of shame. I mean, so I feel like you start getting into these kinds of really practical matters, and it's like, okay, there's like a lot of good stuff that happens, but there's also obviously risk and precautions that have to be taken.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to be taken seriously, right? Like there are consequences to sex, and an STD or STI is one of those, and some of those are not a big deal, and others, those are a bigger deal. But none of them makes you unworthy, but it does add a layer of, now there might need to be conversations,
a layer of complexity, and then honesty. Like, okay,
exactly,
like
disclosure.
I would think, yes, totally.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, I'm going to tell you this before we get into it, and just it seemed, I don't know how common those kinds of things. I mean, so okay, let me just ask you. So, how common is it that somebody is willing to disclose that before they hook up, in your experience?
Honestly, it's not my area of expertise, but I would say that I would imagine, first of all, I know people, and I've worked with clients who have, STIs, and they've figured out a way to have that conversation. That is also something that delays sex for them.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So they're not going to just have sex as quickly necessarily. But that's a later conversation. But there are people who are like, yeah, I don't want to date somebody who has, an STD. That is, some people say that, and that is their choice to make.
And they could say the same. I don't want to date a Democrat, or I don't want to date a Republican, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
everyone can make.
What are the deal breakers?
What
right?
are the deal breakers? Yeah. But people also just need to also educate themselves about like what it actually means, right? Because like, for instance, like when we were in our 20s, having HIV was a death sentence.
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
not anymore.
Yeah, no, it's changed.
And now you can live a long, healthy life and never it'd be completely asymptomatic, and so maybe 20 years ago that would have seemed like, oh, I could never be with somebody that was HIV positive, and now it's like, I guess I could be, and I know that I can protect myself from never actually contracting that virus, right? So there, so I think there's lots of ways that people who are in that situation can educate themselves, but there definitely is still a lot of ignorance and stigma, and I think it is really important that people take it seriously, take their protection seriously, make sure that you're not being like, okay, well, I don't want to be the bummer who's like,
especially if you live in the state of Texas, people.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, take it seriously,
political,
like,
but
and maybe you're worried, oh, is it going to kill the mood if I talk about contraception, or if I talk about using a condom, or if I say, who cares? Like, it's worth it. And, and I think especially if you are dating for a long-term relationship, you want to know, is this a person who actually I'm on the same page with and I can talk to? Because if somebody's like, oh God, condoms, like what, and they don't want to do, like, is that who you want to be with? Like, you think that's your partner?
Check, please.
So I think, I think it's one of the, I think sometimes there are these things that might feel like, oh, I've got this special situation that makes it harder for me. But I actually think there's a way in which these types of things, and whether it's like having an STI or being a single parent or having a health issue that's not, it's not sexually, but just whatever that thing is that you're like, it's going to be extra hard for me. I actually think that those actually create really great opportunities for clarity, because it's going to be very clear to you who is somebody who still sees me as a person and doesn't, like you're still, you know what I mean? Versus if you just didn't have those filters, you may not know I'm actually dating the kind of person who would never date somebody, who would judge somebody really harshly if they had an STI and think that they're a bad person. And I wouldn't want to date that person. Right. So even if I don't have one. So I think that there's a lot to be said for just having that vulnerability, having that courage to, disclose whatever it is that you think is your deal breaker. But also, no, you don't have to disclose it to everybody. And you wait and you see, when is it right? When's the right time? And is this person who I feel like I built enough trust with to have this conversation? Because it's not a conversation you have to have with everyone.
Yeah, and not necessarily on day one. So, what is your in all the years you've been practicing as a matchmaker and love coach? What would you say is the biggest blind spot for women? Like, what do they get wrong, and what is it for guys? And maybe it's the same.
I think that's a good question. Oh, I'm like biggest. There's so many. I guess I'll start with saying that I think a big challenge that a lot of women have, and I'm talking specifically about women who date men, because this is the conditioning that we get. Is it is about like being chosen and not being too much for a man. So I think a lot of women have this conditioning that it's like, I have to find a way to be palatable and to be attractive to men, because if they see me as, difficult or, not attractive, or then I'm high maintenance, then needy, then I'm not going to be chosen and I'm going to be alone. So that creates that belief. So going back to the power beliefs, if you have a belief that it is your job to be chosen, then you are going to see yourself as like almost like an object that always has to be like, I have to be the shiniest doll on the shelf, versus if you look at it as we're actually choosing each other, then it's like, well, then obviously I need to be myself, because how else would I know if you're the right person for me, right? And I'm the right person for you. So I think
Well, it comes
that
back to agency, right? And
it
back to your
comes back
point,
to
it's like
agency.
your that heart set,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah. And,
mean,
and it comes
like,
back to, yeah, it comes back to self-worth, right? Believing like, oh, I actually deserve to be loved for who I am, and not because I check boxes, but because I just inherently deserving of love. Right. So I think that belief translates into a lot of blind spots for women, which has led me to have conversations with, clients that'll be telling me about this guy, and they, the da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you like about him? And they almost can't answer that question,
I just want him to like
because
me.
they just are so
Right?
focused on, I mean, seriously, like they like they get like, there's some boxes that he checks that makes them want him to choose them, but they're so focused on like being what they think he wants them to be, that they're not even paying attention to who he is, right? So that's a huge blind spot for women. And I think that for men, I mean, I think some men, and if you watch a show like Love is Blind, you see that men also have this this same belief around like, I get to choose. I should be
Oh,
the one who's
interesting.
choosing.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And so like, if you watch a show like Love is Blind, you'll hear men say things like, I'm here to pick a wife, right? Like, and so there is still this kind of leftover sense of like, I'm the man,
Yeah, the
and
patriarchy, right?
the
That sort of
patriarchy.
male dominance. Mhm.
Right. And I'm the one who has all the choice here. So I get to be selective. I get to see which one is the sexiest, which one is the this, which one is the that. So I think that same belief can cut both ways, that turns into some blind spots and very unhelpful perspectives that people bring to
Mhm.
dating and relationships.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like what Terry Real it just reminds me so clearly of what Terry Real calls, like, the one up. It's like that one up dynamic, and it's like if you think you're holding all the cards and you're one up, good luck in the relationship. Not even
Right?
realistic. And some people want that, right? Let's face it. Uh, or they think they want that, right? That's what they're used to, not likely an especially, healthy dynamic, but it is an interesting perspective. It's like, what I think healthy, evolved people really want. It's like really a partnership, right? I mean, you want it to be mutual. You want to come with your own sense of agency, and you want that other person to have a sense of agency.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That
And
feels
that's
like grown
what
up love.
it's grown up love. And that's like, I mean, and I probably should have mentioned this already, but like, even, my definition of true love is, again, it's not about one perfect person. It's about a type of relationship. Right. And so, because relationships, and this is a blind spot that everybody gets, because we have so much conditioning around it. It's this idea of being very focused on traits. Like, I want somebody who's this. I can draw the whole list of all, get very specific about what I want in another person. And, but the thing is, like, you don't just live with a collection of checked boxes,
Right.
right? You live with a
Well, it's
human
back to kind
being.
of dating from the inside out, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's again dating from the outside in. Is like, I'm looking for the traits, and I'm assuming that if somebody has all these traits, then they'll be a really good match for me. Whereas if you actually understand, oh, what really exists is the relationship that we co-create between us. That's what we live inside of, right? So it's like, if like the traits are the house, the the outside of the house, like the rooms and the temperature and the light and the decor and the vibe of the house, like that's your relationship, right? Everything that actually you're experiencing. And so I really think of, when you're thinking about all of these different potential relationship dynamics, I define a true love relationship as one that has a foundation of unconditional love. Not that you feel in love every moment, but that you unconditionally treat each other with love, even when you're disagreeing or maybe not liking them so much in that moment, right? Unconditional respect, because respect should not be something that you have to earn. It should be something that you and your partner, like, this is a foundational thing that we have for each other. Emotional and physical intimacy, right? So both emotionally and physically intimate. Emotional and physical safety, right? So you feel that sense of safety in both of those ways. Adoration, which is just like, you adore each other because you got to do that too, right? And be excited and think, each other is great. And joy, meaning that you're able to amplify each other's joy. So, when you come together, you enhance the good things in each other's lives. And last but not least is commitment, because the commitment is what gives us that safety to know, okay, that it is okay. It's safe for me to open my heart up to this person because we're in this together. And, we are going to navigate this for, maybe forever, but we're not
Or
going anywhere
this is the
anytime soon.
relationship right now, right? I mean, and that's, I feel like,
There's
yeah,
no guarantee that anything can last forever. Any
totally.
relationship can last forever.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
there's something to me really exquisite about that, because I feel like you can easily become a little more complacent, take another person for granted. I mean, it's kind of back to keep, if you're married, keep flirting, keep bringing your A game, right? Because,
Yeah.
um, like you do want to grow each other. But let me ask you this. What do you feel like is the role of vulnerability in from that dating into finding true love? Because I feel like we haven't really, I mean, we've touched on vulnerability, but that it feels like it's being called to, like, kind of a call to action for people. So what do people who are looking for love and starting to, kind of getting it out to date, starting with them, what do they need to be thinking about and feeling around vulnerability?
Oh yeah. I mean, vulnerability is good luck finding true love without vulnerability, right? Because you have to be willing to open yourself up, to let yourself be seen for who you are, including the things that you think, that you'd rather hide, which does not mean, and you mentioned Brene Brown. You did mention Brene Brown, I think. Anyway, yes. And I love how she talks about vulnerability in her book, Daring Greatly, which is a book that I recommend for so many people, especially if you have an idea of vulnerability that's just about, now I just spill my guts out and just tell everybody everything. And I go on a first date and I tell them all about all of my fears and insecurities and everything. Like, no, that's not vulnerability, right? That's just dumping on
That's
people,
oversharing. Yeah,
right?
verbal
That's
diarrhea.
oversharing, right? And I think so many people equate vulnerability with like disclosure of like biographical facts versus understanding, even just being honest about how you feel, right? Or how you see something, or what you're looking for, right? Rather than trying to downplay it and be like, oh, well, if I meet somebody, I meet somebody. You're like, no, if you're at a place in your life where you know that you're ready to have a romantic partnership, like, own that, right? And that is an act of vulnerability to do that. It is an act of vulnerability to, practice that eye contact and to say hello to a stranger, and, to give that compliment to, even whether you're single or you're in a relationship. It can still feel really vulnerable to flirt with your partner when, you know you guys have been really stressed, and the romance is not maybe popping so much, and you're like trying to bring it back, and you're like, oh, but are they going to be too stressed or busy to be like, I'll be like, oh, I can't deal with it now, you want me to do what, right? Like, so there's so many ways in which we're called to being vulnerable. But also, even because I know there are people who are listening to this who are on dating apps, and I know that I don't have tons of great things to say about dating apps. However, I think the main issue, well, there's two main issues. One main issue is that the apps profit from your search for love. So that there's that. But the other issue is
your
that
interests are somewhat misaligned, quite honestly.
You're totally right. And that's exactly how I say it. And like the incentives are misaligned. So you have to know that going into it. And most people, the way they use apps is so unlikely to be successful that they're really not, it's not a good use of their time.
Yeah.
But if you do,
I feel like not only can it be waste your time, but it can make you feel real kind of badly about yourself.
Oh,
like
yeah, it can make it worse.
It's like
right?
if you feel like people aren't picking you, it's kind of like, oh crap, I'm not lovable or whatever, right? So I do think it's a good caution for people who are on the apps to be consciously aware of, because it can end up not only not being effective, it can actually be counterproductive.
Harmful. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. And it can make people just feel like, oh, this is impossible. I'm never going to meet anybody, all of those things. But if you are on the apps, even bringing vulnerability to that, because so many people, all their photos, it's like the best photo I ever took. And it's retouched. And then look at how great I am. Look at how sexy I am. And I look so perfect. And I face tuned my double chin out and all of these things. And it's like, even the vulnerability of just like, I'm going to have a photo that's me looking into the camera and smiling, and it doesn't have
keeping it real.
A ton of filters.
Keeping it real is hot.
Keeping it real is hot. And that's an act of vulnerability, right? And in your profile, like saying like, something sincere about yourself that isn't just a random cliche that you've seen in a million other profiles, that's an act of vulnerability, sending when you're communicating with someone.
To me, it's back to that energy thing. It's like, if you have the confidence to keep it real, and maybe 90% of the people don't want you, you don't want those people anyway. Right. And so it's back to, you want the person that wants you for you. And I feel like that to me, when I think of my life, it's like, oh my God, the bold moves pay off, even if they fail. Because by virtue of making that bold move, you change yourself, right? You are essentially saying to the universe, I'm willing to take my shot, right? Even if it doesn't go how I want it to go. It's like a chemical reaction occurs because you're taking your shot. And that's how when I think about keeping it real and, like authenticity, I feel like that's one of the most overused word of the decade. And yet there's a reason why authenticity is so magnetic. I mean, real authenticity as opposed to faux authenticity.
Exactly. We don't want to go to a forest filled with plastic trees and be like, oh, but it's an exact replica of a tree. Like, you want a tree, right? Like, and so we're all being called to have these authentic experiences, but then all this fear and, but scarcity, and I need to be, and I need to be chosen. So it goes back to what, your question before about what's that blind spot. And that blind spot is like, it's about me being as palatable to as many people as possible versus understanding that, no one has ever fallen in love with someone because they were just like everybody else. They were never like, oh my God, her profile was just like everyone else's profile. She had all the same photos. And so I knew she was the one for me. Like, what do you like? What, like, it's so, and I do talk a little bit about online, about dating apps in the book, because I'm like, at least if you're going to be on the apps, at least use them in a way that's like, that has some possibility of being successful for you. Because like you said before, like Helen Fisher says, being on an app is not dating. Texting with somebody is not dating.
It's a meeting.
FaceTiming is not dating. Going on dates is dating.
Yeah. And just even going back to the vulnerability thing and the authenticity thing, I mean, it goes back to the beginning of our conversation. When you talk about how true love is inevitable, it's an inside job. And I feel like if you're not willing to be seen and to be who you really are, good luck. Right? I mean, it feels like it's that binary.
I mean, it's not that it can't happen, but it will not be inevitable. It might happen despite the fact that you are shut down, and then you're still there's no shortcutting the work. Okay. It's just a matter of, are you going to do it now, or are you going to do it when you meet somebody?
Or avoid it,
And
and then potentially be, or maybe even likely be, in a relationship where you continue to stay hidden, right? So yeah, you're in a relationship, but it's not necessarily this ecstatic, blissful relationship,
right, it's not
because
true
you
love.
continue to hold the wall up, and it's like, well, I mean,
Oh yeah,
problem.
anybody could be in a relationship just for the sake of being in a relationship, right? So we're talking about a very specific kind of
Yeah, that is not
relationship,
the goal.
and that
We want true love.
requires
We want bliss.
your
We want
right.
passion.
You want that requires that authenticity and that vulnerability, and it's so worth it. And then you get in, and the other thing is that I think people need to understand, what feels really hard for you today, it's not always going to feel so hard. So if you're like, okay, I'm actually now starting to be more showing up with more authenticity. I'm starting to be more vulnerable. I'm starting to, be more intentional about how I move through the world. Like, don't worry that it feels hard or scary, or when you made eye contact with somebody, you freaked out and you like ran off. Like, it's okay. Like, give
It's all
yourself
part of, yeah,
credit
I
for
feel like it's all
trying.
personal growth, basically, and,
Exactly.
kind of
Exactly.
becoming, back to this idea of how we grow in relationships. It's like, even if you're just dating, this idea of making eye contact, even if you don't feel comfortable, like, that's in relationship, right? Okay, my last question for you. I actually have two more questions. There are no bad dates, according to
You're right.
Francesca Hogi. What do you mean by that?
So unfortunately, there are bad dates, but I have a formula called No Bad Dates, which is a way to really ensure that you are not a person who's going on bad dates. Because many people are going on bad dates. I mean, the number of times somebody's told me, "Oh my God, this date was so terrible," and they start telling me the story. And as the story goes on, it's like, "Oh, so you actually knew from day one, 2 weeks before you ever went on the date, that this person was inconsiderate and unmotivated." So so that's not surprising that that was a bad date, right? So the first part of no bad dates is just your date selection. Like, who are you even saying yes to go on a date with in the first place? So are they proactive? Do they seem excited to meet you? Are they considerate? Are they saying like, "Oh, well, there's this bar on the corner of my house, let's meet there," and you live an hour away, and they could care less, right? Like, you think that's going to be a good date? That's not going to be a good date. Right? Or the person who, you're texting, and they're like never asking you any questions about yourself, and you're the one who's like making all the effort to try to keep things going, and to try, and then you go on it, and and it's a bad, like, of course that was a bad date, right? So that's just the first part, is just paying attention to who are you saying yes to going on a date with, first of all, and what is that pre-date communication telling you about, like, is this person on the same page as me, and is this actually worth my time, right? And then a part of it is your expectation. So if your only version of a good date is, we fall in love and it's instantly passionate and they're my one true love, then guess what? You're going to be disappointed a lot, right? So how can you actually embrace dating as an important process that is teaching you all of these love skills, right? And you have an opportunity to practice all of these things. If you can embrace dating as that more holistically, then there's less pressure, and then you're more likely to have a good time anyway and make a connection anyway, right? And how you date. So say you're a person, for instance, who hates dive bars. If somebody's like, "Oh, I want to take you to this dive bar," I mean, you could go, but you'd probably be setting yourself up better if you said, "Actually, would you mind if we actually went someplace where it was quieter so we could talk more easily," right? Or and then you're communicating a need, and then you get to see, okay, is this person like, "Oh yeah, absolutely," like, "Oh, how about this, how about that," versus like, "Oh, well, that's my only suggestion." You know what I mean? Like, so there's so many kind of steps along the way. So set yourself up to date in a way that feels good. An example that I give in the book is, back, because I used to be a lawyer in my previous career, and back when I was a young lawyer and I was motivated to date, I was like trying to squeeze in a date like whenever I could, and I would have these dates after work, and then I realized, like, I'd be on a date and I'd be tired. I'd be thinking about how early I have to get up in the morning and how much I have to do the next day. And I'm calculating how much sleep I'm going to likely get. I'm like, okay, it's 10 o'clock. If we leave now and I get home, then maybe and I realized, like, okay, that's not setting myself up to win. going on a date where I know I'm going to be distracted, I know I'm going to be stressed out about time, I'm just not going to go on dates that way anymore. Right. And so I'm only going to go on dates where I don't have to worry about getting up early the next morning or, so just really being more strategic about how you're dating and taking more responsibility for like actually setting yourself up to have a better experience. And then the last part of this that I'll say here is also paying attention to like what you're talking about on dates. Because so many times people tell me this, they'll be like, oh, I don't know, like they were fine, but there was no chemistry. And I'm like, okay, well, what did you talk about? And it's like, oh, well, we talked about their job. And then we talked about my job. And then we talked about where we went to school. I'm like, well, why did you have a boring conversation?
I was going to say, Francesca, it's back to flirting. Back to flirting.
Why did you have a boring conversation?
Good energy.
Bring the good energy, bring the interesting conversation. Like, don't sit there and talk for half an hour about your job that you hate. Why would you do that? Right?
Kidding. Hello. Well, it's interesting to me as a practical matter. And I said I had one more question, and I do, and then we'll wrap it up. I feel like it's a hack, but like having kind of a set of questions just in your mind, on your phone, you know what I mean? Like it may sound kind of dorky, but this idea of like open-ended questions that lead to, just an unexpected, maybe funny, like sincere, whatever that is. Like, I just feel like you can be like, to your point, a little more strategic in how back to kind of being vulnerable, like, hey, I've got an unusual question for you, blah, 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 blah. Right. And if they're not feeling it, okay, well then, then that's a good signal, but you're not going to be sitting there bored, like talking about stuff
things that you don't care about, that neither one of you actually care about. Right.
Yeah.
And I 100%
you can have
agree.
that extra agency by just saying, okay, here are the open-ended questions that I like to ask. It helps me understand this person. And it's just different. Right.
You're speaking my language. I always encourage people to have questions. I encourage people to have questions as your opening question on a dating app. Like, even that, like, why are you, like, oh, how are you? How's your day? These are going to be boring interactions, right? It's like, they just are going to be. When I was dating online back in the day, what I would send as my first question? It's random, but it told me so much about people. Would you rather have your own private plane or your own private island? And it was a fascinating question because first of all, it's a really random question, right? And some guys would write back and be like,
what is my answer? I don't know. I'm panicking.
Well, some guys would write to me and they'd be like, well, why are you asking? And I'm like, if that's your answer, like, what do you mean, why am I asking? Like,
next,
what I mean? Like, I'm not asking because I'm going to buy you one. I'm asking, like, it's a conversation, And then some people would be like, oh, I would definitely choose island because then I'd have a place that I could bring all my family, Or I definitely choose. And so I think one of the aspects of these questions is it's not a question that has a wrong answer.
It gives you, but gives you a periscope into what
motivates them, what they actually care about. Because somebody telling me very shortly, I would choose plane because I have all these friends all around the world and then I could see them all the time and I could take them all with me. You just told me so much about yourself and what you actually value, that versus like me saying, how was your day? And you'd be like, fine, busy, like, so I'm a very big fan of just thinking. And then I'll give people who are listening another one, because I think this is another good one when you're on a date, because obviously the topic of work does come up. And so the point is not that you're like, I don't talk about work, but like have a succinct answer, right? Like tell them what you do, right? Succinctly, but then move on, right? And then you can say, and when they're talking about work, well, tell me, what do you love about what you do, right? What's your favorite thing about what you do? Or
that's high vibe.
Right? Or if you could do anything for 1 year and get paid $10 million a year to do it, regardless of like your skill, what would you choose? I love asking people that question because it gives them the chance to dream. And then you actually learn something about what they really care about and what they're excited about and what, so I just think that there's so many ways that, again, you can have more agency and you don't have to treat dating as this passive thing as like, I just have to sit here and hope that somebody picks me and hope that somebody is a good conversationalist and hope that somebody is interesting. It's like, well, what are you bringing? Like, do your part here. And if you do your part, this is going to go so much easier.
Yeah, no, totally. And then that's probably a good note to end it on. I feel like oh my God, the journey is a destination in a way, right? And I realize people want to like smack the crap out of me for just saying that. So sorry. But
No, it's
yeah, I realize
true.
if you wanna find true love, but this idea of, sometimes you're in a relationship or two before you find, if you will, the one or the one that, you end up marrying or so forth. But I feel like if you're in that, this is a journey mindset, and the people that I meet along the way, we have something to share versus back to the commodification of dating, and people are being treated like cattle, like, oh, you know, that one is whatever, right? Which is so dehumanizing. Like, I feel like to show up on these dates with your heart open, being curious, you know, owning your part, I don't know, it feels like there is a way to date and to grow and, develop these skills and so forth that doesn't have to feel like, how do you call this? The broken dating culture. It's like, take your power back. You know what I mean?
I do.
And
I
it
wrote a
just
whole
feels
book
like
about
they're
it.
it like, and I, by the way, again, people might wanna, like, kick me in the head next time they see me. People are like, "You don't get it!" I mean, 'cause I'm married, but but it's back to your very perfect point. You can literally meet somebody in all places, even LA, walking on the street. Like, it comes back to, your point of, like, mindset and heart set. Like, how are you showing up? And if you can hold the outcome a little more lightly, it feels like
You can have
the
more
outcome is
flow.
going to be a better one,
It's going to be
versus
way
like
better.
clinging
Yes.
to the
It's
outcome.
the chapter of your journey to meeting that person is going to be better. And then also your relationship is going to be better because that's just a new chapter of the journey, right? It just keeps going and it keeps going. And the last thing I'll say on that front is just to remind everyone, like, however you meet your person, it is going to feel unexpected. It's going to be something that you could not have predicted. That is always the case. So don't waste your energy trying to control and predict something that you can't, and do the work to step into that place where you can be more excited and more open, and just know that your intuition, your intention, and your aligned action will actually lead you inevitably to meet someone amazing.
You got it. Francesca Hogi. I love it. That is such a great note to end it on. Her first book, How to Find True Love, Unlock Your Romantic Flow and Create Lasting Relationships. It's such a beautiful cover. I love it. Congratulations on your amazing new book. Thanks so much for being on my show. And what can I say? It's such a gift, especially for those who are out there looking and need this, kind of need this encouragement. So thanks so much, Francesca.
Thank you for having me, Andrea. It's been so much fun.
Oh my God, I love her. I hope you guys are feeling so inspired, again, whether you're looking for love or in a relationship, to take flirting more seriously, to be more intentional. I mean, oh my gosh, it's like a great relationship, greatest gift you can give and share with somebody else. Give yourself and share with somebody else. Okay, guys, as always, you can reach me at gettingopen@yourtango.com. If you haven't subscribed, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts, please do. We bring you the show, Dane and Lily and Jacqueline and myself and the team. We bring the show with our whole hearts, and we're so grateful that you tuned in. We hope you will follow. We love your comments. And finally, oh my gosh, I am so excited to tell you about the Your Tango Lasting Love and Marriage Masterclass. And so if you are looking for love, this is for you. If you are in a marriage or long-term relationship, this is for you. It is six, amazing sessions hosted by yours truly with genuinely the OGs of love and relationships. Harville Hendricks, Stan Tatkin, Terry Real, Mark Groves, and others. It is so packed with actionable insights, great, really practical exercises. It's entertaining. It's fast paced. It is so good. So if you're feeling it and want to check it out, go to yourtango.com/masterclass. You can also see the link in the show notes. And for our amazing Getting Open listeners, there is, I think it's $100 off if you use Getting Open, one word, Getting Open, as the discount code. It's so good. It's something I'm so proud of that we've developed. So, a healthy, lasting relationship is key to your health, your wealth, your well-being. I can't overstate the value of cultivating and co-creating a healthy long-term relationship. So check it out, and we'll see you next time.